Dietitians working in long-term care are often asked to complete Section K of the MDS, which assesses a resident's swallowing function and nutrition status. In this video, we're going to walk you through the steps to complete Section K and give you some tips along the way. The first section is K0100. It asks if the resident has any signs or symptoms of a swallowing disorder. Here, you check any and all symptoms the resident displays when eating and drinking. Note that if the resident has documented dysphagia and is receiving a mechanically altered diet, this doesn't necessarily mean you need to check anything here. If the resident is tolerating their diet well and is no longer having any of these symptoms, you'll select Z, none of the above. The next section is K0200. Here you are documenting the resident's current height and weight. Height is rounded to the nearest inch, and weight is rounded to the nearest pound using standard rounding principles. Weight should be measured in a consistent way using the same scale and method. If the resident is unable to weigh for some reason, like they are medically unstable or receiving end-of-life care, you can put a single dash in the blank and document the reason why the resident wasn't weighed in the EMR. Section K0300 asks you to report if the resident has had any weight loss in the past 1 month or 6 months. CMS considers significant weight loss to be 5% of body weight in 1 month or 10% of body weight in 6 months. These are the only 2 time frames that are applicable, so you cannot consider weight loss for any other time period. In the box, you are entering a code of 0, 1, or 2 depending on whether the resident has had significant weight loss according to the percentages and timeframes listed on the form. If the resident has had significant weight loss, you need to document whether it was intentional, that is, prescribed by a physician, or was unintentional. Intentional weight loss can be related to dietary changes or diuretic usage. Section K0310 is very similar to Section K0300, but asks about weight gain. The same rules apply as in the section above. Section K0520 asks you to document which, if any, specialized nutritional approaches the resident is receiving or has recently received. This section was updated in 2023 and now includes specific timeframes which you see listed in the chart. The first is on admission, and this refers to days 1 to 3 of the resident's admission to your skilled nursing facility. The second is while not a resident, which refers to the time prior to admission to your facility but still within the past 7 days. If the resident was admitted to your facility more than 7 days ago, leave this column blank. The third column is while a resident. This refers to the past 7 days during which the resident was living in your facility. And finally, there is at discharge. This column asks you to reflect on the last 3 days of the resident's stay in your facility. Looking at the chart to the right, you simply check the box if the resident was receiving the nutritional intervention listed on the left. Note that letter B, feeding tube, simply asks if the resident has a feeding tube, not whether or not they are receiving nutrition or hydration via the tube. Finally, we have section K0710. This section should be completed only if the boxes in the previous chart that asked about parenteral or IV feeding and a feeding tube were checked yes. Again, you'll notice 2 different time frames. The first is in the last 7 days, but only while the resident was living in your facility, and the second is in the past 7 days overall, no matter where the resident was living. In the chart, you will choose to enter the codes 1, 2, or 3, depending on what proportion of the resident's calorie needs they received via parenteral nutrition or tube feeding. Next, you will document the volume of fluids the resident received via IV or tube feeding. And that's it. Once you get the hang of it, the MDS isn't challenging to complete.